We are continuing now with our Meet the Candidates series for the 1st District congressional race. That primary is on September 5th. And this gentleman is our guest today. It is Walter Berbrick, a Democrat in that crowded primary. He is a political newcomer who recently resigned from the Naval War College in Newport, where he was a faculty member. He's also a veteran. He was a member of the U.S. Navy. Walter, first of all, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, John. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you having here. And also thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Now, as I look at your resume, and it's an impressive resume, I look at this guy and I see this is a military man, and I would think that most of the decisions in your life were based on strategy and planning and intelligence gathering. And yet I also see a guy who jumps into a race with no name recognition, no resources, and no legislative experience. Help me understand why this was the right decision for you in 2023 instead of 2024.
Yeah, as we were just talking about, the opportunity to serve Rhode Islanders and to serve all Americans like this doesn't come around often. And I'm the only candidate in the race who has spent, their entire career in public service, from, serving from the local level to the global level. As a community volunteer leader with the American Red Cross, being able to provide life-saving vaccines to folks in Providence and Pawtucket, being able to serve in the Navy as an intelligence officer, and then spending the last 15 years at the federal level, at the highest levels of our government, at the State Department, at the Pentagon, at the Naval War College, educating our leaders, but more importantly, bringing leaders from across our government and across the world together to come to common ground on real solutions, solutions to keep Americans safe.
Well, that is very impressive, Walter, but no mistake about that. But how do you let all the Rhode Islanders know about your qualifications when you have such a short window to do it? And as we mentioned, a lot of candidates in this race. There are also a lot of good candidates in this race. How do you make yourself stand out?
Yeah, it's being able to, the experience, the expertise, and the background. I'm ready to hit the ground running. Being able to serve at the local level, being able to provide, life-saving vaccines to Rhode Islanders, being able to bring together leaders from the Naval War College, from the State Department, across the world, focusing on issues like climate change, focusing on things like extremism, and it's some of the biggest issues that we're facing here on Rhode Island. I mean, we're at a time right now in our country where we have an economy that doesn't work for working people. We have women across our country have lost their fundamental right to choose. Kids in our communities are constantly engulfed by gun violence. Our climate change is putting our planet in peril, and we are one wrong decision away from fighting another preventable war, and so we need real leadership in Congress now.
I've got to ask you, as you've gotten into this race, what has been, say, different than what you thought it might be getting in, good or bad?
Being able to kick off about 4 months ago with no political experience, the most gratifying part of all of this and surprising thing, to a certain extent, right, is the grit and generosity of Rhode Islanders. But it's the real fear and frustration that Rhode Islanders have, from Woonsocket down to Jamestown, and the struggles that folks are going through each and every day. I met an older woman in East Providence a couple weeks ago that can't decide whether or not to put food on the table or pay for medicine. I met a younger woman who had to quit her job because childcare costs more than what she brought home every day. So, these stories are stories that are a constant across Rhode Island, but across our country, and so folks are really hurting.
I've got to ask you, as a candidate, as a resident of Middletown, so you're in the 1st District, as a voter, what did you make of Sabina Matos and her handling of the campaign signature issue for her?
Yeah, for me, public service and holding public office, or any public, as a public servant, it's all about integrity. And for me, whether it's the Sabina, signature scandal, or whether we're talking about Ann Regenberg's super PAC that his father-in-law just stood up, to me it's about integrity. Being in the military, being at the federal level, we have a code of conduct and a code of ethics that we have to live by, and that goes for everyone. And so when it comes to the signature scandal, look, as a leader, we expect leaders to delegate responsibility to decisions to folks that work for them, but at the same time, you have to be willing to own and be responsible for those decisions as well. And so it's about being honest. It's about communicating with the general public what you know and what you don't know, and just keeping an open line of communication.
Yes or no? Do voters care about that?
What's that?
Do you think voters will care about it on September 5th? Yes or no?
I do, and it gets down to integrity. Only 11% of Americans have trust in government today. And so, and these two scandals and these two incidents just reflect a reflection of that. And we're seeing it right now with, the former president and what's going on with the indictments. And so our democracy is under attack so many different ways. And so we need, leadership in Congress who, a representative who can listen, who can be honest, and who can work hard and represent Rhode Islanders, whether or not you voted for me or not.
Right. All right, we'll end it there. Walter Berbrick, thank you so much for your time. I wish you good luck in the
Thanks,
campaign.
John. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Now, early voting, as I mentioned, starts today in the 1st Congressional District Special Election Primary. That means you can head to your local Board of Canvassers or other designated locations to vote early. Most cities and towns have their hours Monday through Friday designated for early voting. You can find those on the Secretary of State's website.